Welcome back, adventurers. Oh man, I just had this sudden memory flash. It kind of makes me laugh every time. Picture this. It's the year 2000. Me, maybe 15, probably way too much caffeine in my system, you know?
Oh, I can picture it.
Riding my bike down to the local game shop, clutching this like wad of cash I'd saved up mowing lawns or something, because the brand new Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition player's handbook was out.
The anticipation. I remember that feeling.
Totally. And getting it home, ripping off the plastic, that smell, you know?
Yeah.
Fresh book smell.
Oh, yeah. Best smell in the world.
I just like inhaled that thing. My first character, okay, get this, a half-orc barbarian. But he was absolutely convinced he was a bard.
Okay, that's brilliant.
His charisma was probably like 6.
Mhm.
His idea of a performance involved mostly yelling threats at goblins until they ran away or attacked.
Sounds effective in its own way.
Let's just say my poor DM had a few gentle chats with me about what exactly constituted a successful perform check. Good times, though. Really good times.
That's a perfect story to kick things off, actually, because it really sets the scene for what we're talking about today. That whole era, the turn of the millennium, it felt like something new was happening for D&D players.
It really did. Which brings us to today's conversation. We're looking at what a lot of tabletop players think of as maybe the golden age of Dungeons and Dragons. We're talking D&D 3rd edition.
Mm-hmm.
And we absolutely have to talk about Pathfinder 1st edition, too. I mean, everyone calls it DND 3.75, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's baked into the DNA.
Plus, our producer, Ken, big Pathfinder fan. We definitely don't want him mad at us for leaving it out.
Wise move. And honestly, you can't really talk about the legacy of 3rd edition without talking about Pathfinder. It grew right out of it.
Exactly. So the big question we're kind of kicking around today is, was this period, 3E, 3.5, Pathfinder 1E, was it really the absolute peak of D&D design? All that depth, all that player choice?
Or is it maybe a bit of nostalgia, looking back with those rose-tinted glasses? We loved it then, so we assume it must have been the best.
Yeah, that's the tension, isn't it? So we're going to explore the systems, what the designers were trying to do, and why these editions made such a huge impact on so many of us.
Sounds good. It's a fascinating period in RPG history.
Okay, so let's set the stage. D&D 3rd edition lands in 2000. For anyone who maybe came in later, like with 5th edition, how big a deal was this? What was the landscape before 3E?
Well, it was a pretty huge deal, a real watershed moment. You got to remember, it followed Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. AD&D 2E was beloved, for sure, but it had become, well, a bit complex in places.
Complex how? Like rules-wise?
Yeah, rules-wise, it had evolved over time. You had the core books, then the Player's Option series, which added a ton of modular rules, some great ideas in there, but it wasn't always super consistent. You had different subsystems for different things.
Right, I remember Sexy Zero. That was a thing?
Exactly. Faxi, different saving throw categories.
Yeah.
It worked, but it wasn't the most intuitive system. Before that, you had AD&D 1st edition and the earlier basic D&D sets. Each version built on the last, but 3rd edition felt different.
How so?
It felt less like just an update and more like a fundamental redesign. Wizards of the Coast had bought TSR, the original company, and they really wanted to sort of modernize D&D, make it more unified, easier to grasp the basics, but still keep that depth veterans loved.
So streamline it, but keep the crunch.
That was the goal, yeah. And the absolute heart of that effort, the biggest change, was the introduction of the D20 system.
Yes. The mighty D20. That felt like it simplified everything.
It really did. It was the core idea. Pretty much everything, attack rolls, skill checks, saving throws, will be resolved with a single D20 roll, plus your relevant modifiers, trying to beat a target number, a difficulty class, or DC.
So no more checking different charts or using different dice for climbing versus sneaking versus hitting something.
Pretty much gone. That consistency was revolutionary. You, as the player, could focus more on what you wanted to do, not how the specific rule for that action worked. It just flowed better. The player's handbook even encouraged open rolling for players, for transparency.
Right, put the dice on the table, though the DM might still roll in secret for suspense, like for traps or hidden monsters.
Exactly. Adds to the tension.
And this D20 system wasn't just in D&D, was it? They did something pretty radical with it. The open game license, the OGL.
Oh, the OGL. That was maybe just as impactful as the D20 system itself, honestly. Yeah. It basically allowed third-party publishers to create and sell their own material using the core D&D 3rd edition rules.
Which meant?
It meant an absolute explosion of content. Suddenly you had dozens, maybe hundreds of companies making new monsters, new classes, new spells, adventures, settings, all compatible with D&D.
So the game just got bigger. Instantly.
Massively bigger. It created this incredibly vibrant ecosystem, way more stuff than Wizards could ever produce on their own, more choice for players, more ideas floating around. It really fueled that feeling of endless possibility.
Okay, so you've got this unified D20 system, this open license, creating tons of content, but you said they also wanted it to be accessible and deep. How did they manage that balancing act?
It was tricky. But the core mechanics, like the D20 roll, were pretty easy to grasp. The depth came from the layers built on top of that. Think about character creation, feats, skills. Lots of options if you wanted them, but you could start simpler.
Like the alignment system. I remember that changing.
Yeah, that's a good example. They went from like 3 or 5 alignments in older editions to the classic 9-box grid, lawful good, chaotic evil, true neutral, all that.
Which felt more nuanced.
It did. It gave you more specific ways to think about your character's ethics and morality. It wasn't just window dressing. It could genuinely influence role-playing and character choices.
And character creation itself. That felt like where the real magic happened in 3rd edition, the level of detail you could go into.
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge leap forward in customization. They organized the classes into clearer groups, warriors like fighters and paladins, wizards, priests like clerics and druids, and rogues, which included bards too, made the roles clear.
But some classes vanished from the core book, right? Like monks and assassins.
Initially, yes. That caused some debate for sure. They wanted to keep the core book focused. But those classes definitely came back in supplements later, and Pathfinder brought them back prominently too. Also, little things like magic users just became wizards or mages, and illusionists became a type of specialist wizard, not a whole separate class.
Streamlining again.
Exactly. And things like weapon proficiencies, which were sometimes optional or complex before, were baked right into the classes in the player's handbook. Psionics, the mental magic stuff, got its own dedicated book later, so it didn't clutter up the core rules for newcomers.
So keep the core clean, add complexity and layers or supplements. And what about the races? Did they get more robust too? I remember non-humans sometimes felt like they peaked early in older editions.
That was a big focus. They explicitly gave demi-human races like elves and dwarves higher potential level maximums and more meaningful racial traits. The idea was to make them viable for long campaigns, right up to epic levels. You didn't feel penalized for picking a non-human later on.
So your choice of elf or dwarf felt like it mattered for the whole campaign, not just the early level.
Precisely. Still some class restrictions compared to humans, but much better long-term playability.
Yeah.
It made that initial choice feel more significant.
Okay, so 3rd edition hits, it's a big splash. But then, pretty quickly, we get D&D 3.5. What was that about? Was it a whole new edition?
Not really a new edition in the same way. Think of 3.5, which came out in 2003, as more of a major revision, a comprehensive update. They took a few years of feedback from 3.0, identified balance issues, unclear rules, things that weren't quite working as intended.
And they tidied it up.
Yeah, they tidied it up, rebalanced some spells and classes, clarified rules language, smoothed out the rough edges. It was often called an accessory update booklet internally, I think. It made the game better, more polished, based on actual play experience. Most people playing 3rd edition after 2003 were actually playing 3.5.
Gotcha. So 3.5 is the refined version of 3.0, but then 4th edition is announced a few years later, around 2007, and that seems to be the catalyst for Pathfinder.
That's exactly right. Wizards announced D&D 4th edition, and it became clear pretty quickly that it was going to be a very different game. A major departure from the 3.5 rule set, mechanically and philosophically. More focus on tactical combat, different power sources, felt a bit more like a miniatures game or even inspired by video games to some.
And a lot of people who love 3.5 weren't thrilled.
A significant chunk of the player base, yeah. And also, crucially, many of those third-party publishers who had built their businesses around the 3.5 OGL. They preferred the style, the depth, the specific mechanics of 3.5.
So Pathfinder steps into that gap.
Exactly. Paizo Publishing, who had been publishing Dragon and Dungeon magazines under license, decided they wanted to keep supporting the 3.5 rule set.
Yeah.
They started releasing what they initially called a series of house rules for the 3.5 version, designed to further refine and improve upon it.
Ah, so it literally started as tweaks and improvements to 3.5.
Pretty much. It was a direct response to 4th edition, offering an alternative path for players who wanted to stick with that style of game. They aimed for compatibility with existing 3.5 adventures and supplements, so you could still use all that material you owned.
But it wasn't just 3.5 with house rules, right? It evolved into its own thing, hence 3.75.
Absolutely. Their design philosophy was clear. Keep the great, iconic parts of 3.5, but actively fix the clunky rules that slowed down play and caused more than one heated argument at the game table. They wanted to make it easier to use, better balanced, and just more consistently fun.
So take the 3.5 engine, tune it up, fix the known problems, maybe add a few new features.
This is a perfect analogy. They streamlined some things, rebalanced classes and races, consolidated skills, lots of small but significant changes that added up. It really felt like the next logical step from 3.5, which is why that 3.75 nickname stuck so well. It was D&D 3.5, but arguably better polished.
Okay, that makes total sense. So let's dig into why people loved that 3.5 Pathfinder system so much. Character customization always comes up first. It felt like you could build anything.
That's probably the biggest draw for many, yeah. The sheer level of player agency in crafting a character was immense. Let's look at races first, because they went way beyond just +2 to this stat, dark vision, done.
Right, they felt more distinct. Take half-elves in Pathfinder. What did they get?
Okay, so half-elves got a +2 bonus, but crucially, to any one ability score they chose. That flexibility reflected their mixed heritage, medium size, normal speed, low light vision, standard stuff. But then they got unique things.
Like what?
They got the adaptability racial trait, which essentially gave them the skill-focused feat for free at level 1, letting them specialize in a skill right away. They counted as both human and elf for effects, which could be useful. And they got elven immunities, immunity to magic sleep, +2 save bonus against enchantments. That's a lot of flavor and mechanics packed in.
Yeah, that's way more than just a stat bump. It gives you mechanical hooks and story ideas. What about half-orcs? Were they just angry smashers?
Pathfinder gave them more nuance, too. They also got that flexible +2 to any ability score. Medium size, normal speed, but they got 60 feet of dark vision, better than half-elves. They had an intimidating trait giving a +2 bonus on intimidate checks, counted as both human and orc.
And the orc ferocity thing? That sounded cool.
Oh yeah, orc ferocity was great. Once per day, if they dropped below 0 hit points but weren't outright killed, they could keep fighting for one more round. Like a last gasp, heroic stand. Could totally change the outcome of a close fight. Again, it gives them a distinct mechanical identity beyond just being strong.
So the races felt like solid, unique starting packages. Now the classes, that's where things really opened up, right? With all the abilities you gained level by level.
Absolutely. Each class had a detailed progression with core abilities that defined how they played and evolved. Let's take the barbarian. Everyone loves raging.
Who doesn't love raging?
Exactly. But it wasn't just one thing. They got rage powers as they leveled up in Pathfinder. Things like powerful blow, adding extra damage once per rage. Quick reflexes, giving an extra attack of opportunity while raging. Raging climber or leaper, adding their level to climb or acrobatics checks, suddenly your raging barbarian is scaling walls like Spider-Man.
Okay, maybe an angry Spider-Man.
A very angry Spider-Man. Plus, they got trap sense for better saves against traps and the crucial uncanny dodge abilities.
Right, those let you keep your dex bonus to AC even if surprised,
Right.
and made it harder to flank you, made them really tough to pin down.
Made them incredibly resilient, yeah. Not just sacks of hit points, but genuinely hard to take down through conventional tactics.
What about a paladin? How did their holy warrior thing work mechanically?
Paladins got a really cool choice with their divine bond ability. They could either imbue their weapon with celestial power, making it magical with enhancement bonuses, or special properties like flaming or holy.
Like forging a holy blade.
Exactly. Or they could bond with a mount, getting a special celestial steed that was unusually smart, strong, and loyal. This mount advanced kind of like a druid's animal companion, gaining abilities as the paladin leveled.
So you could be the shining knight with the blessed sword or the noble warrior on a divine charger, both supported by the rules.
Yep, offered 2 distinct paths within the same class concept. Very cool.
And rangers. Masters of the Wild, how did that translate?
Rangers, obviously, had their favorite enemy. This gave bonuses on skills like bluff, perception, sense motive, survival, and damage rolls against specific types of creatures they chose. Really made you feel like an expert hunter specialized against, say, giants or undead.
Knew their weaknesses, how to track them.
Precisely. They also got an animal companion, much like a druid's, that they could command effectively. The share spells ability let them cast spells on themselves that also affected their companion, great for bucks. And while empathy let them try to influence animals, sort of like diplomacy for beasts, all reinforcing that master of nature theme.
And rogues. Sneaky, skillful types.
Rogues were all about skills and precision damage. They got evasion, letting them dodge fireballs and dragon breath entirely on a successful reflex save. Later, improved evasion meant they still only took half damage even if they failed the save. Made them very survivable against area effects.
And the sneak attack, of course. The signature move.
His signature move, extra d6s of damage against enemies denied their dexterity bonus to AC, like if they were flanked or flat-footed. This encouraged tactical positioning, teamwork with allies to set up flanks, and using skills like stealth or bluff to catch enemies unaware. Huge part of their identity.
Fighters often get seen as the simple class, but in 3.5 Pathfinder, they felt like they had their own kind of complexity through feats, right?
Absolutely. Fighters were the martial masters defined by their bonus feats. They got way more combat feats than any other class, allowing for incredible specialization from very early on. You could build a fighter focused entirely on archery or two-weapon fighting or sword and board defense or tripping and disarming opponents.
So two fighters could play completely differently based on their feat choices.
Night and day difference. One might be an unhittable tank, the other a whirlwind of damage. That feat progression was their core progression in many ways.
And speaking of progression, feats and ability score increases were based on your total character level, not just your level in one class. That must have really encouraged multiclassing.
Oh, massively. It made dipping into other classes much more attractive. If you were, say, a level 5 wizard and took one level of fighter, you were a level 6 character overall. You'd gain the feat or ability score increase for reaching level 6, even though your wizard spellcasting was delayed slightly.
So you could create these really specific hybrid builds.
Exactly. Fighter rogues, cleric wizards, barbarian druids. The system almost encouraged you to mix and match to create the exact character concept you had in mind. It rewarded system mastery and creative thinking.
That sounds amazing for players who love tinkering. So let's talk more about the feat system itself. It feels like the absolute heart of that customization.
It really was. Feats were these discrete packages of ability that let you sculpt your character beyond their class features. Pathfinder especially had a huge list, just looking at combat feats.
Yeah, give us some examples. What were the iconic ones?
Okay, you had things like cleave. If you dropped an enemy, you got an immediate extra attack against another enemy next to you. Great Cleave let you keep going if you dropped that one too. Made fighters feel amazing against hordes of weaker foes.
Like mowing through goblins.
Exactly. Improved Critical doubled your weapon's threat range, meaning you'd score critical hits more often. Huge damage boost. Improved Grapple let you grapple without provoking an attack of opportunity and gave you bonuses. Greater Grapple let you maintain a grapple as a move action, freeing up your standard action. Really made grappling a viable tactic.
What about movement or defense?
Improved Initiative gave a +4 bonus, making you act earlier in combat. Always good. Mounted Combat let you negate a hit on your mount with a ride check. Ride by Attack let you move, charge, attack, and then keep moving. Spirited Charge doubled your damage on a mounted charge. Devastating.
And weapon specialization.
Two-weapon fighting reduced the penalties for fighting with two weapons, eventually granting extra attacks. Two-weapon defense gave AC bonuses for wielding two weapons. Weapon finesse let you use dexterity instead of strength for attack rolls with light weapons, crucial for agile builds. Weapon focus gave a +1 attack bonus with a chosen weapon, and greater weapon focus added another +1. Simple but effective stacking bonuses.
Man, just listing those, you can already see the different character builds emerging. It really was like a mini game within character creation.
It absolutely was.
Right.
Planning your feat progression was a huge part of building a character.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all combat. There were tons of general feats, too.
Right. For skills and utility stuff.
Yeah, things like alertness, often granted by familiars, boosted perception and sense motive. Die Hard, which required the endurance feat first, let you stay conscious and act even below 0 hit points. Super heroic. Endurance itself gave bonuses against non-lethal damage from fatigue or harsh environments.
Practical stuff.
Very practical. Eschew Materials let spellcasters ignore cheap material components for spells. A huge convenience. Fleet increased your base speed by 5 feet, always useful. Great Fortitude, Iron Will, Lightning Reflexes each gave a +2 bonus to one saving throw type, and the improved versions let you reroll a failed save once per day. Core defensive boosts.
What about non-combat abilities? Leadership. Tracking.
Leadership was a big one. It let you attract a loyal cohort, basically, an NPC sidekick who leveled up with you and a bunch of lower-level followers. Could totally change a campaign, turning your party into leaders of a small faction. Very powerful, often restricted by DMs. Track lets you follow trails using the survival skill, essential for rangers or scouts. Stealthy gave bonuses to stealth and sleight of hand. Lots of ways to customize beyond just hitting things.
And then spellcasters had their own special category. Metamagic feats.
Right. These let you alter your spells as you cast them, usually by making them take up a higher level spell slot. Still, spell removed the need for somatic hand gesture components. great for casting while bound or subtly. Silent Spell removed verbal components. Empower Spell increased the variable numeric effects, like damage dice, by 50%. Maximize Spell made all variables maximum. Quicken Spell let you cast a spell as a swift action, effectively letting you cast 2 spells in a round, but used a slot 4 levels higher. Huge tactical options for casters.
So even the spells weren't fixed. You could customize how you used them. Okay, that's feats covered. What about the skill system? It felt equally detailed. Lots of specific uses for each skill.
It was very granular, yeah. Skills covered almost everything you might try outside of direct combat or spell casting, and even some things within them. Initiative we mentioned was technically a check. D20 plus Dex mod plus other bonuses like the improved initiative feat determined who went first. Super important.
Definitely. What about social skills like bluff? More than just lying.
Oh, yeah. Bluff could be used in combat to feint. You'd make a bluff check against their sense motive, and if you succeeded, your next attack against them denied their dexterity bonus to AC. Huge for rogues setting up sneak attacks. Didn't provoke an attack of opportunity either, so it was tactically useful. You could also use it to create a diversion to let you hide. Lots of creative uses.
Nice. Using social skills tactically. What about skills for interacting with animals, like handle animal?
Handle animal was key for anyone with an animal companion, like druids or rangers, who got bonuses with their specific companion. You used it to teach tricks, direct them in battle, pushing them to do things they weren't trained for, or just generally calm or influence animals. Made those companions feel like real partners.
Ride checks were important for mounted characters too, right? Especially if things went wrong.
Absolutely. If your mount fell, a DC 15 ride check let you take no damage from the fall yourself. If you got knocked out while mounted, a check determined if you stayed in the saddle. Little details that made mounted combat feel more involved.
And the perception skills, search and spot. Or just perception and Pathfinder, which combine them. Lifesavers in dungeons.
Totally vital. Spot perception was for noticing things visually, like hidden creatures or traps. High checks could even let you notice invisible creatures nearby, DC over 20. Search was for actively looking for things, like secret doors or compartments, also used to detect traps. Failing these could be unfortunate.
Understatement. And spellcraft for the magic users.
Crucial skill for casters. Used to identify spells being cast by others, to understand magic items, and importantly, to decipher scrolls or copy spells into a wizard's spellbook, DC 20 plus spell level. Filling that check meant you couldn't try again for a day. Also used for crafting magic items. Indispensable for arcane types.
Even basic movement like swim had detailed rules.
Oh yeah. The DC depended on the water conditions. Calm, rough, stormy. Holding your breath was based on your constitution score, reduced by actions taken. Then you had to make increasingly hard con checks to avoid drowning. Swimming for long periods caused fatigue damage. Made aquatic adventures genuinely challenging. The system really tried to cover every eventuality with a rule.
That level of detail is kind of staggering. And it wasn't just the player characters, right? NPCs, even generic ones, seem to have proper stats and abilities.
Yeah, the Dungeon Master's Guide had template stat blocks for NPCs of various classes at different levels. An NPC fighter wasn't just guard, AC 15, attacks +2. They had specific HP, AC based on actual armor, like split mail for a first level, attack bonuses, saving throws calculated correctly, specific feats chosen, even suggested gear.
Made the world feel more solid, like even the random guard captain was built using the same rules as the players.
Exactly. An NPC paladin would have their smite evil uses per day calculated, their aura of courage bonus listed. An NPC rogue would have their evasion ability and skill ranks in things like stealth and disable device specified. An NPC sorcerer would have their known spells listed, maybe feats like combat casting. It gave DMs ready-made functional NPCs that felt part of the same world.
And then beyond the base classes, you had prestige classes. These were like advanced specializations.
They were. Prestige classes were a huge draw. You had to meet specific prerequisites like minimum ability scores, skill ranks, feats, or even performing certain story actions to take levels in them. They offered unique, powerful abilities you couldn't get from the base classes.
Like the Hierophant you mentioned, for divine casters.
Right. Hierophant was for high-level clerics or druids. It didn't grant new spells per day, but it did increase your caster level, making your existing spells more potent, longer durations, harder to dispel, etc. And it gave special abilities like Blast Infidel, letting you maximize negative energy spells against specific targets. They felt like a capstone, a way to truly distinguish your high-level character. There were hundreds of prestige classes across all the books.
Wow. Okay, so character creation was incredibly deep. Let's shift to actually playing the game. Combat in 3.5 and Pathfinder is famous for being tactical, almost like a chess match sometimes. How did the rules create that feeling?
A lot of it came down to the detailed action economy and the importance of positioning. Each round was 6 seconds, you acted on your initiative count, and you had a specific budget of actions each turn.
What were the main action types?
You had standard actions usually for one attack, casting most spells, using many special abilities. Move actions for moving your speed, drawing a weapon, unless you had quick draw, standing up. Full round actions for making a full attack, multiple attacks if you had them, charging, running, casting spells with long casting times, and free actions, talking, dropping an item, things that take almost no time.
So you had to choose carefully what to do each round. Can't always move and make multiple attacks.
Exactly. Do you move into position? Do you stand your ground and unleash a full attack? Do you cast a crucial spell? That decision every 6 seconds was the core tactical loop. Plus you had things like the 5-foot step, a small positioning adjustment you could usually take even if you attacked. Very important.
And attacks of opportunity, those really governed movement, didn't they?
Oh, hugely. Attacks of opportunity, or AOs, were free attacks enemies got against you if you did certain things while threatened, meaning within their melee reach. Moving out of the threatened square was the classic one. Casting a spell right next to someone, making a ranged attack while threatened, standing up from prone.
So you couldn't just run past enemies without consequences.
Not usually. You had to withdraw carefully, or use skills like tumble in 3.5 or acrobatics in Pathfinder to move through threatened areas safely. It made the battlefield sticky. Positioning mattered immensely. Spellcasters had to be especially careful not to get interrupted or attacked while casting.
What about specific maneuvers like charging or overrunning?
Charge was a full round action usually, letting you move double your speed in a straight line and make one attack. You got a +2 bonus to hit, but took a -2 penalty to your AC for the round. High risk, high reward way to close the distance. Overrun was a standard action to try and move through an opponent's square, basically knocking them aside or down. Required checks based on size and strength. Added more options for melee characters to control space.
And working with your allies, flanking was a big deal too.
Massive. If you and an ally were on opposite sides of an enemy, you both got a +2 bonus on your melee attacks against them. Seems small, but +2 is significant in the D20 system. And crucially, a flanked enemy is denied their dexterity bonus to AC against rogues, enabling sneak attacks. Teamwork and positioning were heavily rewarded.
What about things that obscure vision or hide enemies? Concealment.
Concealment added mischances. Minor concealment, like light fog or foliage, gave a 20% mischance. Total concealment, heavy fog, darkness, invisibility, gave a 50% mischance. Rolling that mischance before your attack roll added tension. Invisible creatures were particularly nasty, gaining big bonuses to stealth. But there were counters, like the scent ability or the blind fight feat, which let you re-roll mischances, added another layer of tactical complexity.
It really sounds like the environment itself was a major factor in combat, not just flavor text.
Absolutely. Terrain had mechanical effects. Forests might have undergrowth, providing concealment or hindering movement. Cliffs required climb checks. Steep slopes affected movement and maybe gave bonuses for higher ground. Difficult terrain, rubble, swamps, dense forest, cost double movement to move through, made choosing your path important.
Did weather play a role?
Oh yeah. Storms could reduce visibility drastically, impose penalties on perception checks, make ranged attacks difficult or impossible, and even extinguish light sources. Extreme heat or cold could cause fatigue. The environment wasn't just static, it could actively work for or against you.
And of course, the classic dungeon feature, traps. They were famously deadly in these editions, right?
Infamously deadly. Traps felt less like minor inconveniences and more like serious encounters. The rules detailed how to build them, with challenge ratings based on their deadliness and the difficulty to spot or disarm them. Mechanical traps, pits, darts, scything blades, usually had a base DC of 20 to find or disable. Magic traps, using spells like Fireball or Lightning Bolt, were harder, DC 25 plus spell level.
And you needed specific skills to deal with them.
You usually needed the perception skill or a search spot in 3.5 to find them, and disable device to disarm them. Crucially, for magic traps, you typically needed the specific trap-finding class feature, which only rogues, and some niche class archetypes got, made rogues almost essential for serious dungeon delving.
So a party without a rogue was taking a big risk. What kind of triggers and effects did traps have?
All sorts. Location triggers, step on this specific square. Proximity triggers, get within 5 feet of this statue. Touch triggers, time triggers, sound triggers. Reset mechanisms varied too. Some were single use, some reset manually, some reset automatically after a time. And the effects. Oof, we're talking spiked pit traps, dropping you 100 feet for 10d6 falling damage plus spike damage. Lightning bolt traps, zapping corridors for 10d6 electricity. Poison darts, crushing walls, symbol spells that could easily kill unwary or unprepared characters. Demanded caution.
Okay, traps sound terrifying. Let's talk about the things setting the traps or just living in these dungeons. The monsters. The bestiaries were huge and detailed too, weren't they?
Oh, the monster manuals were legendary, packed with creatures, each with a comprehensive stat block. AC, HP, saves, ability scores, skills, feats, special attacks, special qualities, CR, treasure, alignment, advancement possibilities, everything you needed.
So each monster felt mechanically unique, not just reskins.
Very much so. And Abyssal Ghoul wasn't just a tougher ghoul. It had uncanny dodge, standard undead immunities, maybe paralysis, disease, plus that creepy ability to sense dying creatures and target them. Gave them tactical intelligence.
What were some other standout examples of cool monster mechanics?
So many. Demons like the Klurcher CR25 had multiple attacks, poison, grapple abilities, a walking nightmare. Aberrations were always weird. The Half-Illithid could literally extract your brain if it got a hold of you. The Holothoin could deform you, drain charisma, and spawn swarms of blood fiends from its wounds.
Gross and deadly.
Exactly. Outsiders like imps could turn invisible or change shape. Constructs like the Blood Golem had unique attacks and needed blood to survive. Even something seemingly simple like a swarm had special rules.
Right, swarms were different, weren't they? Hard to hurt.
Yeah, swarms of tiny creatures often took half damage from weapons, and swarms of fine diminutive creatures like insects or rats might be completely immune to weapon damage. You needed area effects like fire or specific spells. They also couldn't be critically hit or flanked. An abyssal ant swarm might have attacks that bypass damage reduction. A cranium rat swarm could hit you with a mind blast, made fighting them a totally different kind of challenge.
And the game provided tools for placing these monsters logically, like wandering monster tables.
Yep, the DMG had random encounter tables tailored to different environments and character levels. So exploring a 6th level dungeon area might randomly throw werebores or shadows at you, while a 19th level area could feature dragons, golems, or high-level outsider patrols. Made the world feel dynamic and dangerous.
This level of detail just permeates everything. Let's talk magic. Spellcasting felt like a really core, complex system in itself.
It absolutely was. Mastering spellcasting was a big part of playing a wizard, cleric, sorcerer, or druid. It started with the spell components.
Verbal, somatic.
Verbal V, somatic S, gestures, material M, consumed items, focus F, reusable item like a holy symbol or arcane focus, divine focus, DF, sometimes even an XP cost for really powerful spells. If you couldn't provide the components, if you were gagged or bound or didn't have your holy symbol, you couldn't cast the spell.
Added constraints. And concentration was key too.
Hugely important. If you took damage while casting or were grappling or in violent weather, you had to make a concentration check. Usually DC 10 plus damage taken plus spell level. Fail, and you lose the spell. Made casting in melee very risky without specific feats like combat casting.
And how did different classes actually get their spells? It wasn't the same for everyone, right?
No, very different approaches. Wizards were the classic preparers. They had a spell book with lots of spells, and each day after resting, they choose which specific spells to prepare in their available slots based on their intelligence. Very strategic, required planning ahead.
What about clerics and druids?
Divine casters. They prayed to their deity or communed with nature each day to receive their spells, chosen from their entire class list, limited by their wisdom score. Still prepared, but didn't need a spell book in the same way. Paladins and rangers also prepared their smaller list of divine spells.
And sorcerers and bards, they're different.
Yeah, they were spontaneous casters. I knew a smaller number of spells overall, but they could cast any spell they knew whenever they wanted, as long as they had a slot at the appropriate level available. Based on charisma. More flexible in the moment, but less versatile overall compared to a paired caster with a big spell list.
So, different playstyles baked right into the casting mechanics. Clerics also had domains, right? Extra thematic spells.
Yes, clerics chose 2 domains based on their deity, like good, healing, war, knowledge, undeath, etc. Each domain granted special abilities and bonus domain spells they prepared each day in addition to their regular spells. Really helped define a cleric's specific role and flavor. A war domain cleric felt very different from a healing domain one.
And even the martial classes like paladins and rangers got a bit of spell casting.
They did, yeah. Mostly lower-level spells focused on buffs, healing, utility, or nature themes. Paladins got things like Bless, Cure Light Wounds, Protection from Evil. Rangers got Entangle, Longstrider, animal-related spells. augmented their main abilities, did make them full casters.
Okay, let's talk about the spells themselves. The lists were enormous. What were some common or iconic examples across different categories? Healing and protection.
Well, you had the standard cure spells, light, moderate, serious, critical wounds.
Mm.
Protection from energy was vital, absorbing a set amount of elemental damage. Protection from evil, good, law, chaos gave AC and saved bonuses against certain creatures and could block mind control. Higher level stuff like Life's Grace could make you immune to death effects or negative energy.
Offensive magic. Beyond just fireball.
Oh, tons. Magic Missile for reliable force damage. Inflicts spells for negative energy damage, great for hurting the living, healing undead. Sonic Blast for sonic damage and deafness. Electric Jolt for a ray of electricity. Field of Icy Razors created difficult terrain that dealt cold and slashing damage. Lots of elemental variety.
What about controlling the battlefield or messing with enemies?
That's where casters often shone. Cause Fear could make enemies flee. Dominate Person Monster gave you complete control. Enthrall could fascinate crowds. Plant Growth could choke areas with impassable vegetation. Ray of Entropy hit enemies with ability score penalties. Stasis could paralyze humanoids until a condition was met. Crowd control was incredibly powerful.
And utility. Getting around, seeing things, bypassing obstacles.
Fly was a game changer for movement. Fog Cloud or Obscuring Mist for cover. Invisibility and its Sphere version for stealth. Wall of Force created an impenetrable, invisible barrier. Wall of Ironstone for permanent structures. Summon monster spells to call in temporary allies. Spells like Knock to open locks, Detect magic to see enchantments. The utility list was endless. A prepared wizard felt like they had a tool for everything.
It really sounds like a spellcaster's paradise. But magic wasn't just spells. The magic items were just as deep and customizable.
If not more so, magic items were a huge part of character progression and power. And significantly, you could make them yourself if you took the right feats.
Item creation feats, right? Craft magic arms and armor. Craft wondrous item.
Exactly. Forge ring, craft wand, craft rod, brew potion, scribe scroll. Each required time, expensive materials, often half the market price of the item, and sometimes specific spells. But it meant you weren't just relying on what the DM gave you. You could craft the exact +2 flaming longsword or ring of protection +3 you wanted. Empower it.
So you could outfit yourself. What about the common consumables? Potions, scrolls, wands?
The bread and butter. Potions were single-use spell effects, relatively cheap for lower-level spells like Cure Light Wounds or Bull Strength. Scrolls are also single-use, but could hold higher-level spells, great for emergencies or spells you didn't want to prepare every day. Wands held 50 charges of a single spell, usually 4th level or lower, making them great for repeated use, like a wand of Cure Light Wounds for out-of-combat healing. Very efficient.
And the permanent gear. Magic armor and shields. More than just AC.
Way more. They had enhancement bonuses, +1 to +5, adding to AC. But the real value was in special abilities. Arrow-catching shields could deflect arrows. Fortification armor, light, moderate, heavy, gave a percentage chance to negate critical hits or sneak attacks. Huge for survivability. Spell resistance made you harder to affect with spells. Reflecting shields could bounce spells back. Specific items like celestial armor were amazing light, high max dex, flyability, or a vest of resistance just gave a flat bonus to all saving throws.
Magic weapons were probably even more diverse.
Oh yeah. Enhancement bonuses +1 to +5 added to attack and damage. And then abilities. Flaming, frost, shock added elemental damage. Burst versions added even more on a crit. Holy, unholy, axiomatic, and anarchic dealt extra damage to specific alignments. Wounding caused bleed damage. Speed weapons granted an extra attack per round. Brilliant energy ignored armor bonuses. Dancing weapons could fight on their own for a few rounds. And the legendary Vorpal, decapitation on a natural 20.
Vorpal. Just sounds terrifying. What about the other slots? Rods, staves, rings, wondrous items.
That's where things got really interesting. Rods like the Rod of Absorption could absorb spells cast at you, letting you reuse the energy later.
Yeah.
The Rod of Rulership commanded obedience. The Rod of Wonder produced random, often bizarre effects. Staves held multiple charges of several related spells, like a Staff of Fire or Staff of Healing. Rings were classic. Ring of Protection, Ring of Invisibility, Ring of Spell Storing, ring of Genie Calling. Summon a genie, but maybe it's insane or grants wishes.
Wondrous items felt like the catch-all category for anything weird and magical.
Pretty much. Amulets of natural armor, of health. Belts of giant strength, boots of speed, of striding and springing, cloaks of elven kind, of resistance, gloves of dexterity, of storing, headbands of intellect, goggles of night, The list was immense. Things like the portable hole or bag of holding for extra storage, the Afridi bottle like the genie ring, Matic of the Titans for smashing things, just endless variety.
And some items were even intelligent, like they had personalities.
Yes, intelligent items were rare and powerful. They had their own ability scores, int, wist, cha, and alignment, senses, communication methods, and special powers they could activate. They also had an ego score. If the item's ego was higher than your character's, it could potentially try to dominate you and force you to follow its goals. Made for amazing role-playing opportunities. Imagine arguing with your sword.
That's fantastic. So it's clear the system provided incredible depth for players, but what about the Dungeon Master? Did all these rules give them a strong toolkit for building worlds and running games?
Absolutely. The DM section of the rules was just as comprehensive. It provided frameworks for adventure design, for example, starting with a hook to get the players involved, leading to encounters keyed to maps or events.
And it emphasized player choice within that structure.
Very much so. Good adventure design, according to the guidelines, should offer meaningful choices with real consequences. Turn left, fight a monster. Turn right, find a clue. Help the rebels. The king brands you criminals. Ignore them, they get crushed. Player agency was built into the advice for DMs.
It also mentioned plot weaving, mixing multiple adventures.
Yeah, the idea of having several plot threads running simultaneously to make the world feel more alive and less like a linear sequence of quests could be complex to manage, but very rewarding if done well. The DM tools also covered things like managing campaign dynamics, changing political situations, introducing personal threats to NPCs the players care about, keeping the world evolving around them.
And the environments themselves, like dungeons, had guidelines for making them feel logical.
Right. Different dungeon types were discussed. An occupied structure, like a guarded fortress or active temple, would be different from an ancient, forgotten ruin. Occupied places would likely have fewer random monsters, more organized guards, maybe alarms, logical layouts, food stores, etc., made the environment feel more believable.
But you still had random encounters for the unpredictable element.
Oh yes, those wandering monster tables were a key tool for adding unpredictability and draining party resources, making exploration feel dangerous. Customized tables for specific areas were encouraged too.
Even the cosmology, the structure of the universe, was detailed.
Incredibly so. The Great Wheel cosmology with the material plane, the inner planes, elements, the outer planes, alignments, deities, connected by the astral and ethereal planes. It was all mapped out. Concepts like planes being coterminous, touching at certain times, or coexistent, overlapping like the plane of shadow, provided mechanics for planar travel and adventures.
Specific planes had unique treats, too.
Definitely. Planes like Yisgard were divinely morphic, shaped by the wills of gods like Kord. The plane of fire had environmental dangers. The abyss was infinite layers of chaos and evil. This detailed cosmology provided a huge canvas for epic campaigns.
Okay, looking back at all of this, the customization, the tactics, the magic, the world-building tools, it's really easy to see why people call this era a golden age. It feels incredibly comprehensive.
It really does. The sentiment you often hear is that these editions, 3.5 and Pathfinder 1N, really empowered players, gave them the tools to truly master the game, not just play it, foster this deep engagement.
A richer, deeper, and more rewarding experience. That phrase seems to capture it. What were the absolute core strengths that made it feel that way?
I'd say number one is that extensive customization. Feats, skills, multi-classing, prestige classes, magic items. You could fine-tune every aspect of your character. Number two, the intricate tactical combat, positioning, action economy, AOOs, flanking. It rewarded smart thinking and teamwork.
It wasn't just rolling dice, it was making meaningful choices every round.
Exactly. Third, the robust rule systems. For almost any situation, there was likely a rule or guideline somewhere. This created consistency and allowed for that feeling of system mastery. And finally, a palpable sense of character growth. Seeing your character gain new abilities, feats, better stats, finding or crafting powerful items, the progression felt incredibly tangible and rewarding.
So if that was the philosophy, depth, complexity, mastery, how does that contrast with D&D 5th edition, which is the current standard?
Well, 5th edition clearly has a different design philosophy. It prioritizes accessibility, streamlined mechanics, and faster play. It's often described as a gentler entry point. It removes a lot of the granular rules, the floating modifiers, the complex subsystems that define 3.5 Pathfinder.
So less crunch, maybe more focus on narrative.
Generally speaking, yes. That's not to say 5e lacks depth entirely, but it's far less mechanically complex. 3.5 and Pathfinder really appeal to players who enjoy that complexity, who
Hmm.
like digging into the rules, finding synergies, optimizing builds, and engaging with a highly detailed tactical simulation. It's a different kind of fun, rewarding a different kind of engagement.
Neither better nor worse, just different aims, different
I
audiences.
think that's the fairest way to put it. Both editions and the eras they represent have brought countless people joy and amazing stories. They just offer different paths to get there.
That makes sense. We've really covered a lot of ground today, exploring why D&D 3.5 and Pathfinder 1E hold such a special place for so many players. That depth, that customization, that feeling of mastering a complex system. It's easy to see the appeal and why it's remembered so fondly as a potential golden age.
It was certainly a defining era for the hobby.
So it leaves us with a thought to ponder, doesn't it? As D&D keeps evolving, we have 5th edition now. Revisions are on the horizon. What will future players look back on as our current golden age? Will it be the intricate mastery offered by systems like 3.5 and Pathfinder, or will it be the accessibility and streamlined storytelling focus that brings so many new players to the table today? Something for you to think about until our next conversation.
A great question to end on.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this exploration. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with your gaming group, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chat. Until then, keep rolling high.